Hello, and thank you for joining me on today's video blog. I'm Stephen Pilkington with the Path Home team. So on today's video blog, we're going to discuss what is an escalation clause, should you be using one, and how do you use it? So in a market like today's market, where inventory is low and demand for properties is high, it's normal. In fact, it would be abnormal for us to see properties not going over asking. That would mean somebody really priced it too high or the condition's not great. So it's normal right now to see homes that are listed for a reasonable price for the neighborhood, that are in good condition, to be getting bid above asking. Yet oftentimes clients don't quite know where to peg that because homes are selling for more than the comps that sold 3 or 6 months ago. So unlike normal real estate transactions over history where you can just kind of look at what's been selling in the neighborhood and what's the price point, we often now are encountering new territory. And yet you don't necessarily want to pay more than you should, yet you also want to get the property. So that's when we use a tool called an escalation clause. So let's say, for example, there's a property you're interested in and it's listed at $500,000, which is a very competitive price point right now. And we know that based on some other properties that are under contract, we might see that property go to 5.25 or even up to 550, let's say. And in some extreme situations, that might even be low. It might even be getting into the low sixes to mid sixes. So let's say we decide that we think that the most we're willing to pay for it is around 565, but we're really comfortable paying around 540. So usually what I have the conversation with my clients on is, well, first of all, we figure out from that listing agent, where do we think that property is going to land? How strong do we need to come in to have a competitive shot of it? So if it's listed at 500, the escalation clause includes a couple things in it. It means, what are we offering? How much are we willing to go up to based on them providing us a copy of another bona fide offer, which typically has the names of the buyers and the names of the agent blacked out, so we can't see that. And it has to be a net offer. So let's say we offer 540 with an escalation to 565, and somebody comes in and bids 550. Well, our escalation clause would then surpass their 550. Part of our escalation clause would be, how much are we willing to bid over the next highest offer? And I usually recommend doing somewhere at least a minimum of $1,000, ideally about 0.5%. So that would be about $2,500. So let's say that we're willing to bid $2,500 over the next closest net bona fide offer. And we've got language that's been drafted up by attorneys for this. And so we submit that offer, we go in at 540, someone else goes in at 550. They use our escalation clause. That puts you then at 550 to 500. Pretty reasonable amount. And it's a relatively automatic thing to use. Yet, let's say, why even start at 540? I've got clients that'll often say, well, if my escalation clause just automatically goes up, why don't I start at 500 then? It's like, well, the reason you don't do that is because if you don't submit a strong offer as your initial offer, oftentimes sellers will get offended or they'll actually discount your offer even though you're willing to bid somebody else up. And believe me, I've seen some people come in where they're offering right at asking price, but then they've got an escalation clause that goes $100,000 over asking. Meanwhile, we've got people that are submitting offers right off the bat. Their first offer will be $50,000, $70,000 over. And so oftentimes the sellers don't like to see that person that just kind of limps into it and then says that they'll really go high. So now when you're figuring out that price on how much are you willing to offer on the high side for an escalation, this is what I typically walk my clients through. Okay, so let's say we submit an offer at 550 and you win. How do you feel? And if they say we feel great, say fantastic. So let's say you submit an offer at 560. They're like, we still feel great. Okay, let's say you submit an offer at 590 and they're like, that scares me. I don't like the idea of that. I'm like, okay, so what amount would you be comfortable with where it might not be super exciting to you, but you'd be willing to move forward on that? And let's say they say 575. Okay, so that means if an offer comes in at 576, you feel grateful that you dodged a bullet and did not get that. But if it comes in at 574, you're willing to beat that. Does that sound about correct? Because oftentimes what happens is people will submit an offer, and then if we don't get it, and then we see what it closes for, my clients are like, oh my gosh, I would have gone up another $5,000 for that property. Like that was a great property. So when we're establishing that price point, think about, what's the price point that you'd be bummed if you missed it? What's the price point that you'd kind of be happy that you did miss it? Because that's just too much for what that's worth. And so I hope that explains a little bit about escalation clauses, how we use them. Right now we're using them a lot. We do always recommend submitting a strong offer up front, but an escalation clause can be a great tool for you to get that. And then the last thing on that is that if you submit that escalation clause, and let's say you go in at $540 and you say, I'm doing $595 as my top, and they come back and it's $595. And now you're like, oh crap, I'm not actually comfortable with that. You don't have to move forward. It's just submitting an offer. It doesn't automatically put you under contract. It's just that opportunity to get your foot in the door to get that property that multiple other buyers are attempting to also buy. So I hope you've gotten some value out of today's video blog. If you've got any questions about this or if you'd like to speak about it in person, please comment, please message me. Be happy to speak with you about that. And until the next time, stay healthy, stay safe, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.